Finally, Kalif has come back to YouTube. Okay, I ain't doing that. I'm in the building though. So, 2025, we're approaching the end of it. Not a lot of good things has happened. Well, I will say one thing, hip hop projects, that's a good thing. With artists like Lloyd Banks, Ray Vaughn, Jid, Freddie Gibbs and Alchemist, Samara Sin and her EP, even Cardi B, there has been some dope array of albums and EPs coming out in hip hop this year. And most notably, one of the people we're talking about, the Clips. Let God sort them out. If you ain't checked it out, please do. I think it's a near classic. It might be a classic, but neither here nor there. I think it will be a good time with the recent Grammy nomination announcements that we revisit, you know? And what better way than talk about two scathing diss tracks by two of the most lethal lyricists and rap artists of all time, and also two of the Grammy nominees. If you're not picking up what I'm putting down, I'm saying it's time to talk about Story of Addidon versus Meet the Grams. Two of the greatest diss tracks of hip-hop history and the best diss tracks in our time. So I've been thinking to myself, out of the two, which one's better? I figure we break it down into sections: context and lore of the tracks, Drake's status, the track breakdown, that means cover art, release, instrumentals, all that jazz, as well as Drake's response to those said tracks, as well as the overall impact of the tracks. Y'all make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe. Let's get to it. Context and lore. Let's start with Story of Addidon. Pusha T's issues with Drake stems from Pusha T's issues with Cash Money. Now, I'm not going to go into a astute breakdown and a detailed history talk about Pusha T and the whole Cash Money Young Money beef. There are plenty of YouTubers that do that more eloquently and have dedicated a whole video. If you need some good examples, FD Signifiers has some video content about that. Look up his I'm What the Culture's Feeling for a good example of not only Pusha T's issues with Drake, but more so Kendrick and Drake's issues as well. Another good example is Quake, aka Diverse Mentality, when he breaks down the issues between Pusha T and Cash Money as a whole. I will put those links in the description if you need to look them up if you're interested. And give them a subscribe too. Tell them Jay Kalif sent you. If you need a summary of how it all began, Birdman doing Birdman things and screwing somebody over. It was just Pharrell Williams this time. And if you know Pharrell's history and relationship with Push and Malice, you know not to fuck with Pharrell. Now, with that being said, Wayne gets involved because of affiliation with Cash Money, and of course the Bape interview when he disses them about who started the Bape thing, and of course Mr. Me Too. Fast forward to 2008, 2009, where Drake gets signed and Drake inherited the beef. Now, Drake used to be a huge fan of the Clips, even having a microphone with their signature attached to it. Of course, Push didn't care about none of that, because Push is cool and unusual. Shout out to Cassavelli. What really kicked it off with Drake is that Pusha T dissing him on his cover of Dreams Money Can Buy, and of course dropping Exodus 23-1, which warranted a trash Wayne response called Ghoulish.
Fuck Pusha T and anybody that love him. His head up his ass, I'ma have to headbutt him.
When are we going to admit that Wayne can't diss for shit? But that's not here or there. Drake, he didn't really spend too much time focusing on Pusha T. Maybe some indirect subliminals here and there throughout the years, but it wasn't until 2017 where Drake dropped Two Birds and One Stone, in which he not only disses Pusha T, but also disses Kid Cudi. And side note and side quest, Pusha T and Drake's beef also stems from Kanye. Now, Kanye and Aubrey has always had this bromance in which they work well with each other, but then they also bumping heads. Drake done some verses and ghost wrote for Kanye. Kanye has made beats for him. They've recorded together, but they've also had their share of hiccups. Most notably, the one where Kanye makes a beat for Drake and then turns it into a troll song. You may recall the song Lift Yourself. Yeah, that one. In 2018, the Wyoming recordings happened. And during those Wyoming recordings, Pusha T makes the album Daytona, all produced by Kanye. The last track, him responding to Two Birds in One Stone in a track called Infrared. Very lethal track. But Drake did not hesitate. That same day, Drake immediately drops W Freestyle. In my opinion, W Freestyle is Drake's best diss record. You want to hear Drake at his best when he comes at somebody, listen to that song. Perfect example of him at his best. Now, even the Drake haters had to admit that song was fire and Pusha T might be in trouble. Some was even saying that Pusha T might lose his beef because you're dealing with a different monster. That's until 3 days later, Story of Addidon drops, and the rest is history. Now Kendrick Lamar and Drake's relationship is a lot more complicated than Pusha T's. I say that because with Pusha, it's really simple. Inherited beef with Cash Money, doesn't like the guy because he thinks he's soft. With Drake and Kendrick though, they was on good terms in the beginning. Not necessarily best friends, but Drake had Kendrick and A$AP Rocky on his Headlines tour in 2011, and they made noteworthy, and Kendrick and Drake had made noteworthy tracks with each other. Songs like Poetic Justice, songs like Buried Alive Interlude, songs like Fucking Problems. Hot take, Drake and chemistry. Hot take, and people don't want to admit this, especially now in current times, Drake and Kendrick had some great chemistry together when it came to songs. You don't drop 3 great tracks back to back and say there's bad chemistry. And you would think they would collaborate more often. You would think they would work with each other more often. What could possibly go wrong for that to break down, right? Control. That's what happened. Control was a 2013 nuke on hip hop in the sense that not because he was disrespecting everyone, but Kendrick wanted everybody, the top players of hip hop, to step their rap game up. Everybody made a response, even those weren't mentioned. I was one of them. No, I'm not going to preview it. No, I'm not going to show it on this video. No, I'm not going to talk about it. I regret that song. It's not a bad song. Nah, I ain't gonna talk about it. Let's not talk about it. Let's not talk about it. It was stupid. I was young and dumb. But anywho, a lot of people took offense to that diss track, which wasn't really a diss track. But Drake was the most notable person who took offense to that. I couldn't tell you why. Drake probably either thought that. Why Drake took offense to that? Well, either he didn't understand the nature of hip hop, how it's competition, or Drake took it personally for Kendrick because he thought those two had a very personal friendship. Either way, it caused him to throw shade and insults at Control as well as Kendrick in interviews across the year. Breakfast Club, the magazine interviews, etc., etc., etc. That's what really kicked it off between them, because then Kendrick Lamar responded on a BET cipher saying, ain't nothing been the same since he dropped Control and tucked the sensitive rapper back in his pajama clothes. Ha ha, joke's on you, high five. I'm bulletproof. And with Drake sending his subliminal shots through songs, whether it be from the language or Jodeci, because yes, he did diss him in Jodeci. Listen to verse 2.
We move the operation in Cali soon as the snow drop. All stop, please stop arguing about who's the best MC. I think everyone would agree, they know that you're not. I know I'm a short shot, middle finger poking you in your sore spot.
It finally started to kick off, in the public eye at least, that there was issues between them. Now, after 2013 and 14, it kind of fizzled out a little bit. It seemed like it did. Though I do want to point out the ironic timing of Kendrick Lamar's King Kunta verse when he says a rapper with a ghostwriter, what the F happened, and Drake being revealed as having ghostwriters the same year in the Meek Mill beef. It's kind of too coincidental, don't you think? But anywho, again, another noteworthy moment was when Kendrick dropped The Heart Part 4, in which not only he makes it obvious that he dissed Big Sean, but it definitely hints that he goes at Drake too. And with the original version of Element leaking a few years back, it makes you wonder if Kendrick has something for him that time too. But that's speculation. But again, it seemed like it's been a cold war between those two, where they would take a little shots here and there, or a little jabs here and there, or mentions here or there, like Drake mentioning Kendrick in For Free, or Kendrick and Baby King kind of making fun of a Drake song in the Hillbillies. It hasn't been direct yet, like a cold war in a sense. And then First Person Shooter happens. Now, if you lived under a rock, First Person Shooter was a banger with Drake and J. Cole, in which J. Cole references and mentions Kendrick and calls themselves the Big Three, with Kendrick being involved. Apparently, Kendrick was supposed to be on the song but declined, and we never knew why until Like That dropped the next year. I remember like yesterday, Like That, Future dropped an album and Kendrick was a hidden feature. Like That played, and next you know, we're hearing after Big Three, it's just Big Me, and the shots at Cole, the shots at Drake. The Cold War was officially blazing, and now it was on. After Like That, Drake responded at first with push-ups. At first it was the original that was believed to be AI, but then it was re-recorded as an official version and put on DSPs everywhere. Hot take, Push-Ups was a pretty solid track as an entirety, not just about Kendrick, but as an entirety. But then Drake would then back to back, like he did with Meek Mill on Tailor Made Freestyle. This was a track where he would use Tupac and Snoop's voice AIs to diss Kendrick. My opinion, one word, not gonna talk about it much, tasteless. But no matter how you feel about those two tracks, people were starting to get nervous for Kendrick. They were worried that he was gonna get cold feet, like Jermaine. Get it? Cold feet, Jermaine.
Boy,
But that wasn't the case. On a random Tuesday, Kendrick dropped Euphoria, the napalm bomb, and it shook and changed the whole tide of the beef. Because now Drake had to respond with something serious. Kendrick was more enthused than Drake gave him credit for. So, before Drake could respond again, Kendrick pulled a back-to-back on him and dropped 616 in LA, in which it references a glove as a cover art. More on that later. Another hitter. So, at night, Drake ended up dropping Family Members. So, later on in that same day, when Kendrick dropped 616 in LA, Drake told Kai Cenat to stay on stream, and thus Family Matters was dropped. With a video, visualizer, apples and oranges, whatever. And before people could even fully process the track and give their own opinion, less than an hour later, Meet the Grounds dropped. Drake's status. Figure I'll sit down for this one, because I kind of want to vibe real quick. I've been doing my steps, walking around left and right all day. So, I think it's important to examine where Drake was at in the hip-hop game in those respective years. We're talking about in Push's case 2020. We're talking about in Push's case 2015 to 18, and in Kendrick's case 2022, 23 to 2024. In 2015, Drake was on top of the world. He was the man. He just came from a victory against Meek Mill, who was regarded as a respected battle rapper. And he got bodied from back to back, despite the ghostwriting allegations and reveals. Not to mention, he capitalized off of that with a joint album with Future, as well as Hotline Bling. Drake was on fire. He was the highest he's ever been. He was finally getting the respect he finally deserved. He felt like he deserved this whole time. And as the years go by, he was seen as the biggest artist bar none. Nobody was coming close to him in hip hop. With songs like with songs like More Life, with albums like Views and with albums like More Life, he started to go into more of a different genre or a different sound. And it was getting subtle, but it was there. From Passion Fruit to Controller, it seemed to give him more Caribbean style as opposed to traditional hip hop. We're starting to use teens and sing like teens and all that. So, but he was still on top. So by 2018, he drops God's Plan, another banger and another hit. He was on top of the world by the time that Pusha T dissed him on Infrared, and he was a different monster. He wasn't seen as soft anymore, he was seen as a threat. If you dissed him, Drake would destroy you. So when Pusha T came at him, and when Drake immediately responded with W Freestyle, people were starting to worry that Pusha T was going to be another victim, because this wasn't the same Drake that was dissed in 2010 or 11. Of course, we all know what happened. As opposed to Kendrick, Drake was seen different. And a lot of that was post due to his actions and his behavior in 2022 to 2024. From stealing songs, to dissing people who didn't need to be dissed or had no reason to be dissed, to his change in his lyrics, how it became a lot more immature as his age, and how it became a lot more, for lack of a better term, red pillish and incel-y. And the tough guy, he started acting more too tough guy. Drake's whole personality did a whole shift by the time 2022 to 2020s happened. And frankly, people were starting to get tired of it. He started to fall out with his female fan base from the people he dissed for no reason, like Serena Williams and his husband, or Rihanna. Drake was starting to get called out on his behavior and how questionable it was at times. And from then, it kind of gave Kendrick an edge to come at him. Not saying that it would have mattered, because obviously Drake unanimously lost. But in the case, it's like people were waiting for Drake to get the F out of here, as opposed to when the Push thing happened and he was still on top of the world. Drake wasn't seen as a unanimous top dog anymore. No pun intended. Track breakdown. Oh, here we go. Track breakdown. That's my favorite one. All right, let's start with Story of Addidon, because I feel like out of the two, Story of Addidon gets, I would like to say Story of Addidon doesn't get the credit it deserves, and mainly because due to the reveal in that song. So let's talk about the release date. The release date was 3 days after W Freestyle and Infrared. It also is a 6-year, and it also was released on a 6-year anniversary of Exodus 23-1. And apparently it was also released on, I think, on 40's Illness Day that celebrates it. But that's alleged. I don't know the full I don't know if that's true or not. But anyway, let's talk about the cover art. The cover art is it speaks a lot of volumes. It's Drake in the blackface. It's young Drake, 2007 or 8 bars. Now, of course, Drake has addressed it, and of course, Pusha T has addressed the addressed, but it paints a whole picture of what Pusha T is trying to convey in Story of Addidon. And speaking of stories, let's talk about the instrumental, Story of OJ. Had to grab myself some pizza, y'all. Bear with me. Okay. Anywho, Story of OJ. Story of OJ is Jay-Z's song from 444, in which he talks about black identity, black liberation, black excellence, and the issues that we as a black community go through. Now, with that being said, I'm not going to go into a full song breakdown. That's not what this video is for. Again, there are plenty of other YouTubers that can break it down. I will leave some links in the description if you're interested. But the importance of Story of OJ is because what Pusha T was trying to convey is how Drake has severe identity crises as a black man, with lyrics such as "Hell, your father walked away your daddy walked away at 5, hell of a dad thing. Marriage is something that Sandy never had. Drake, how you were winning, but she keep coming at last place. And confused, always felt you weren't black enough, afraid of going because your fro weren't nap enough." Even before he starts off and when he says, "It's yellow," given a key thing that Drake has an issue with black identity. He's trying to convey that Drake has issues being black. Now let me break it down what he means by that. He means that Drake uses blackness as a suit of clothing, something to wear as an image, instead of just letting that be who he is. This is why, and as Pusha T said, he is silent whenever there's some racial issues in America, because he's a mixed Canadian. While, Drake profits off of black culture, he'll wear it like a suit of clothing, but he won't embody it. But at the same time, will complain about how he is not perceived as a black artist because he doesn't, in Pusha T's mind and in a lot of other people's mind, he's not a black artist. He's just an artist that acts black. And I know what people are going to say, well, he's mixed, yada, yada, yada. You got to understand, for American black culture, it's a difference. A lot of artists in our time, whether it be white or even vultures that are our skin color, they would use the either stereotypes or use, blackness as something to wear or something to profit off, when it's not really that life. It's like the suburban kid it's like Malibu's Most Wanted. It's the suburban kid that acts like he's from the hood because that's what he thinks being black is. It's that type of thing. So as he goes on, we get to the big reveal, which again, it goes back to, since you name dropped my fiance, let them know who you chose as your Beyonce. Now, again, layers to it, because Jay-Z's relationship with Drake. Drake has always idolized Jay-Z. A line in Summer 16, he says, "I used to want to be on Rockefeller, then I turned into Jay." The idolizing of Jay-Z, because that's who he aspires to be. That's who he deems as black excellence. He wants to be seen the same light as Jay-Z. Hence the Beyonce reference. Pusha T knows what he's doing, what he's saying, we putting these words down. So MC, it's not about what you say, but how you say. A top tier MC would put those words for a reason. I know people like to say don't look too much into it. Sometimes you got to, because if you're dealing with an MC like Push, like Kendrick, you got to examine every word of why he particularly chose that one. But with the big reveal, Sophie knows better as your baby mama. Cleaned her up for IG because the stench is on her. You are hiding a child. Let that boy go home. Deadbeat motherfucker playing Border Patrol. Ooh! And then he brings up Adonis as your son. He deserves more than an Addidon press run. That's real. There's a reason he said that, because he's painting Drake as the only time you'll even be proud to be a father if it's in profiting you, if it's in helping your pockets. He paints a picture that Drake cares more about his image and his pockets than just being a genuine father. Because why else would you hide that child if it's not the, if not else, if it's, why else would you hide your child? Why else would you keep it quiet until you have a big Adidas deal? Which, by the way, because the story I added on, that Adidas deal was canceled. That's true, by the way. I know Adidas hates Pusha right now. That's another reason why Drake hates him. They ain't never worked with each other since. Again, it's nothing but disrespectful. And speaking of disrespectful, Pusha T goes for the juggler for 40, making fun of his whole illness. Tick, tick, tick. Hunts OVO 40 hunts over like he 80. The lack of respect that Pusha T displays in that track is pure venom and pure indifference. He does not care about anything that's about Drake. And that's what makes the track lethal. It's effortless. He's not flustered. He is chill. He is literally, I don't want to say he's an anime villain, but he's damn near an anime villain. Push a Thanos, that type of stuff. But I want to bring up one last thing. It's the outro, where he talks about Surgical Summer Volume 1. That's always get overlooked when he says we will peel this back layer by layer. It's obvious that Pusha T had more in the chamber, and if had this continued, we probably would have got something similar to Meet the Grounds that Pusha T, or probably something even more disrespectful. Pusha T is a different monster. He's cruel and unusual. Shout out to Casavelli. Meet the Grounds. Now, Editor Kalif here. I totally forgot to talk about the cover art before anything. So, as you can see, the cover art of Meet the Grounds is an expansion of 616 in LA. From the glove, to the prescription bottles, to the receipts, to the shirt, it reveals a lot from its gambling addiction, from its pill popping addiction. Now, we don't know where this came from. It could come from the sources that Kendrick was telling us about in 616 in LA. But I love how it's expanded from the last diss track. Keep in mind, this is also not on Spotify for the cover art, so it must be a real photo. Back to the, I don't know about you, but I remember the day, May 3rd. I remember May 3rd. I swear to God, May 3rd might be the day that hip hop people will be like, remember May 3rd, remember May 3rd. Like it's an omen or something. I remember listening to 616 in LA at work and reacted to it mid-car, and I remember listening to Family Matters, and then I also remember listening to Meet the Grounds. When I tell you, when those pianos drop, the tone shifts immediately. It goes from hip-hop fun to, oh, this is getting dark. The discomfort rises exponentially. And then the beginning verses. The beginning line. Dear Adonis. The beginning line. I still remember this like it's yesterday. I have an unreleased video of my reaction to Meet the Grounds that I was too much in shock to put it on YouTube. Just my mouth and drop the whole time. But I remember the line, Dear Adonis, I'm sorry that your man is your father. Sorry. Dear Adonis, I'm sorry that man is your father. Let me be honest. It takes a man to be a man. Your dad is unresponsive. I look at him and wish your grandpa would have wore a condom. Oh my God. I get serious about it, because that is we've all had witness, like we've all heard brutal openings to a diss track where it was Pox, that's why I fucked your bitch, whether it was, Ether's fuck Jay-Z's Pac sample. But this one, that might be up there. That might be on the top. To start it off, addressing the son. And that's what separates Kendrick from Push. Push does, and we'll get to that more as far as impact and final thoughts. But every line mattered in each verse. When he gives his son advice on how to be a decent human being because he knows his father can't raise him to be one. From giving advice about not code switching, from saying to never take shortcuts and getting health. Go get a gym membership. Don't take drugs. Don't rely on pushing so much. Don't disrespect women like your father has. And then the ender when he tells his son to not watch it at 18 is diabolical. And then we get to the second verse. Dear Sandra, your son got some habits. I hope you don't undermine them. Basically expressing sympathy to Sandra, but at the same time disrespected Dennis for being a terrible father himself. Dear Dennis, you gave birth to a master manipulator, even using you as proof to take as a huge favor. I think you should ask him for more paper and more paper and more paper, blaming him from all his flaws because he got it from him. And then a huge reveal happens. Sandra, sit down. He's a sick man with sick thoughts. I think like niggas like him should die. And here's what people tend to misconstrue. Drake wasn't called a PDF file initially. He was called a predator. Yes, there's a difference. There's a difference. Both are wicked and terrible and should be put under the ground. Kendrick describes Aubrey as a predator. He don't describe him as a PDF file, saying he hates black women, hypersexualizing with keeps a nympho fetish. And the proof is in the pudding. Y'all see how I did that? Y'all see how I did that? Y'all see how I did that? That's a metaphor. But how Drake has dissed several women that has no reason to be dissed. Why are you dissing Rihanna? Why are you dissing Georgia Smith? Why are you dissing Megan? Why are you dissing Nice Spice? Why are you dissing Serena? The list goes on. He took notice of that, and that's what the people took notice of. Again, a reveal. It's not that he's saying nothing new, but just because it's already being seen in the public doesn't make it any less true. And then he talks about how he keeps sets of fans around him. Baka, again, not saying that he's a one, not in Meet the Grounds at least. He's saying that you keep those people around you, so you're guilty by association. And then encouraging people close to him that aren't like that to stay away, like Curry and like LeBron and his family. And then you get to the controversial third verse. Dear baby girl, I'm sorry that your father not active inside your world. He don't commit to much but his music, and that's for sure. He a narcissist, misogynist. Try to destroy families rather than taking care of his own. Now, we still don't know if that's the case. Kendrick could have been exaggerating or lying, or Kendrick could be telling the truth and just doesn't want. Again, this is what separates Kendrick from Push. Kendrick cares enough not to dox the people around him. Push don't give two craps. And that's the key difference you gotta recognize. So if it is true, because there has been rumors about it, if it is true, then Kendrick's not gonna reveal the information because for the sake of the mother and the daughter. But still, and honestly, shout out to Curtis King because he said something, and he brought a different perspective that I didn't think about. He said,
This song is the more I listen to it, it feels less and less about Drake and more about a segment of Drake's fan base who could not see him for who they would never believe that he could be. Ain't no way Drake like my baby daddy. Ain't no way he like the father of my child that ain't shit. Ain't no way. Nah. He got too much money to be doing all of that.
We still don't know if the daughter is true or not. Kendrick's camp claims that it is. And we will never know. Or with time, we'll find out if it's true or not. For Drake's sake, I hope not. Now, speaking of Drake, Dear Aubrey, last verse is therapy. Constructive therapy. Listing all the problems he have: gambling problems, drinking problems, pill popping and spending problems, bad with money, whorehouse, soliciting women problems. Kendrick comes to him like a psychologist, analyzing Drake as an individual. This to me is probably the vicious verse because he wraps it all up, and this is what makes Meet the Grounds great. If you are an artist and an MC, it's not always about punchlines and internal rhyming. Sometimes what you say is about painting a picture, and that's what Aubrey did. He paint a picture revolving his whole family to the point where he summarizes with, fuck a rap battle, you in a long life battle with yourself. And also, do not forget that he also brought up how many baby mamas you a body saver. And then he says he lied about everything. But go back to the baby mamas. The baby mamas line. You a body shamer. You gonna hide them baby mamas. With referencing that he may not have just one. It may be all many that he kept under the rug. And here's what you don't realize. Maybe Drake's not aware of it. Or maybe Drake doesn't believe it. Or in denial. We don't know. But with lies like that, and you lie about your son, you lie about your daughter, you lie about them other kids that's hoping that you come. It makes you wonder. And that's the whole point. Because all of it is plausible because of Drake's character in the last couple years. And Kendrick knows that. The ending is beautiful in a twisted way. You lied about your religious views. You lied about your surgery. You lied about your accent. All passes, all is perjury. Just calling him, going back to Euphoria where he's a habitual liar, master manipulator. That track is hard. That track is impeccable. Drake's response. With Story of Addidon, Drake was shook to the core, and it was obvious. He didn't respond for I think a day or two. I remember that. And then his first response was talking about the blackface photo in a notepad. Now, whether you believe it or not, that's up to you. But at the end of the day, it kind of showed where this was headed a long time ago. We wasn't gonna get a Drake response track. Then, shortly after, it was revealed that Jay Prince, Rap-A-Lot mogul, and one of the main reasons why Drake got his foot in the door and signed to Young Money eventually, and also his Houston connect, let's keep it a buck, said that he was the one that broke up that squashed the beef between Push and Drake, in his words, and he was the one that told Drake not to make any more diss track because the track that he had was career ending. Okay, as far as that goes, I don't know if I believe that. No, I ain't gonna say it. I don't believe that. But anywho, Drake will continue to make shots and shade and references to Story of Addidon in his album Scorpion, in which he talks about, I wasn't hiding the world for my child. I wasn't hiding my child for the world. I was hiding the world for my kid. To make it responses on 8 out of 10. To make it responses on Sandra's Rose. And also taking some shots at, Kanye throughout the way. And then, after which, LeBron and the Drake interview happened. It's what you get the famous, you asked me if I let you down. he goes into detail about his relationship with Kanye the past year and how that tends to connect with the beef with Pusha. With Pusha, he claims that Pusha got his information from Kanye because Drake told Kanye all the information during their days in Wyoming when they was recording. He then makes, subtle threats at Pusha T and hits that he would have released a diss track, but he knew it was out of character for him. He would say things that he wasn't proud of. Which, I wonder what he really said, because he was pretty proud of things he said on Family Matters. But Heart Part 6, but we'll get to that in a sec. Now, as far as Pusha T, he responded to Drake's interview on the Joe Budden podcast. I urge you guys to watch it. It's actually a pretty interesting insight. But Pusha T overall says that he didn't get the information from Kanye. He got that information all came from OVO 40, because OVO 40 told all his grievances to a woman that gave Push all the information. Also revealing that Drake tried to pay to have dirt on him, and just other stuff like that, just to give a deeper insight of the whole issues between Push and Drake. I urge you guys to watch it. It's a good listen. But again, Drake has yet to confirm nor deny that. But you did see him working less with 40, so maybe there's some truth to that. And if it is, it makes story of Addidon a lot more vicious. But with that said, there hasn't been a direct diss track between them since, though they have taken shots at each other throughout the years. Drake on numerous occasions and Pusha on numerous occasions. In fact, Pusha T had his verse kicked out of certain songs, like with the Pop Smoke verse, Maybach Music 6 with Rick Ross, and Young Thug's song, because of him dissing Drake in them. And which again gives you more insight of how Drake is going to act in years to come. Now, as far as Meet the Grounds, it shook everybody to the core. People started to question if they really wanted this battle to continue. It really changed the whole tone of the beef. And then Kendrick brought it back with Not Like Us. Now, I ain't gotta go into detail about Not Like Us. Everybody's heard it. Everybody with good taste loves it. It won 5 Grammys. We ain't gotta go into detail about that. That says enough as it is. Not the Grammy part, but all you gotta say is Not Like Us, and that's it. And then Drake's response to Meet the Grounds and Not Like Us, the hard part says, which, to be as generous as possible, because I'm really trying hard not to go off a tangent on hard part 6. From the mother eye sober misinterpretation to just for clarity, I feel disgusted. I'm too respected. If I was effing young girls, I probably would have been arrested. I'm way too famous for the shit you just suggested, but that's not the... What's the lesson, Drake? What lesson? What bigger message is there? Oh, okay, let me chill. Oh, let me chill. Ain't much in there. Let me chill. The hard part 6 is trash. Next, let's keep going. Anyway, after which, Kendrick Lamar then proceeded to make the pop-out concert on Juneteenth, playing Not Like Us 6 times, and then made a music video of, Not Like Us in July 4th, Independence Day, in which he shows a whole lot of West Coast unity, as well as his wife and his kids dancing in the film, kind of rendering Drake's Family Matters disses, void. Drake, however, was on panic mode. Drake came out looking sadder and sadder after each attempt. He kept releasing songs to kind of steer away from the publicity. He started sending random shots and some leaks he had. Let's not forget the lawsuit against Universal for allowing, which again, major major L on hip hop and major stain on hip hop when somebody gets dissed and they make a lawsuit against the label that they're part of, by the way, for allowing the records to be promoted, and also a defamation suit, which ironically Whitney could do the same thing for Drake, but that's neither here nor there. Regardless, Drake just kept coming out looking sadder and sadder. It clearly affected him to the point where he was dissing LeBron, dissing DeMorrison? I don't know how to pronounce his name. The basketball player. And making shade at Kendrick and everybody else around him in songs like What Did I Miss? Songs from his album Iceman that's coming out soon. Drake was really feeling it. And Drake was trying so hard to deviate from it, but he just kept shooting himself in the foot. He probably, if he really shot himself in the foot, he will red eye toes. Be honest with you. Impact. As brutal as Story of Addidon was, because Pusha T was a lesser known artist, the public, even though hip hop heads understood that Drake was going to be looked at the same and not as respected, people still messed with Drake on a heavy level. Drake dropped Nice for What? And everybody kept dancing again, popping again. Drake still had a summer on lock, but hip hop looked at Drake differently. Even if it's a little, it started a domino effect. It planted seeds. Drake also started to move a little different and started to become more and more try-hard as years progressed. But as far as a diss track itself, it didn't really do a lot of damage to Drake's. I think of it, I compare it to Jadakiss's Checkmate. Checkmate destroyed 50 Cent, but because 50 Cent was so hot right now and putting out hot records, it didn't really do much to his career. Now Meet the Grounds, however, that's another story. Meet the Grounds changed everything. Everybody, the impact off the beat alone is significant. You hear the pianos, you know when you hear the pianos in the beginning of the song, they could put that as a sound bite for something bad going on. It became the new ether. You know when the ether beat plays, you know somebody's about to get destroyed. That's Meet the Grounds now. Drake still has had a hard time recovering, and add with Not Like Us, it was a deadly combo. But I feel like Meet the Grounds has a bigger impact because it gave people who had all these issues with Drake, it gave them like a track to symbolize their displeasure. And it made people who weren't aware of how Drake was see the light. A lot of people who used to be Drake fans, Derek P, I remember say he was a major Drake fan, but when he listened to Meet the Grounds, it changed his perspective because his actions after that start reflecting Meet the Grounds. And again, the crazy part about Meet the Grounds is that Meet the Grounds could be even more impactful depending on what happens to Drake as time passes. The most aged tracks are Euphoria and Meet the Grounds. But Meet the Grounds might end up being the best diss track because if what Kendrick says true and Drake gets caught up in more issues, because you have to realize Drake does have an SA case that he swept under the rug. Yeah, he had to pay $530,000 to be exact for it to be swept under the rug. So if there's more to that, then Meet the Grounds becomes the most powerful diss track of all time, and the most impactful too, because it changes the landscape, not only just for Drake, not only just for hip hop, but for the industry as well. Because now people are going to start looking deeper and deeper. And that's I think that was Kendrick's whole point. I said in my 616 in the LA review that this is when he starts talking to Drake, and Meet the Grounds solidified that. So, final thoughts. I want your guys' opinion on this. What do you guys think is the more lethal diss track? Story of Addidon or Meet the Grounds? I personally think that, let me stand up, but I personally think that Meet the Grounds is the better diss track. And I'll tell you why. It's just my personal opinion. Pusha T didn't care enough about Drake to go in a deep dive in that track. When Pusha T's story of Addidon comes as disrespectful, he does not disrespectful, full of venom. He does not like the guy. He does not care if the guy dies, lives, whatever. He don't care if the people around him do. It was all but disrespect. He takes pride in the fact that he made him squirt. He don't regret saying OVO 40 hunts over like he 80. He don't regret saying Sandy never known true happiness because she's been divorced and never been married like that. He doesn't care, and that's what makes it a track of indifference. I don't care about you. You are a bitch to me. I don't care about you. I don't care. It's like what Pac said to Juice. I don't give a fuck about Raheem. I don't give a fuck about Steel. I don't give a fuck about you. That's what it felt like. Pure venom. But with Kendrick, he cared enough about the family to, in the track, whether it was genuine or not, that's up for you to decide, to paint a picture about. I said it before. I want to take back what I said. I said that 16 he was talking to Drake. I felt like with Meet the Grounds that it wasn't just about Drake. It wasn't just about hip hop. That was for you. That was Euphoria. That wasn't for hip hop. That was Euphoria. It wasn't for, the culture. That was not like us. Meet the Grounds is stronger because it wasn't just for Drake. It was for Drake and the people around him, from his family, from his friends. It was from his family to his friends to his fan base, an audience that watches him. He told you guys, this is the man that you guys aspire to be. This is the man that inspires you. This is the man that you guys keep around. This is the man that you love. This is the man that you care about. This is the man you put on a pedestal. This is who he is as a person. And I think that's what makes Meet the Grounds a lot more lethal. It was a psychological analysis and breakdown of the character that is Drake and the man that is Aubrey Graham. Now, thank y'all for tuning in. Let me know what y'all think. So, like I said before, let me know what you guys think about what I said. Let me know what you guys think about which diss track is better. It's an open discussion. I would love to hear y'all inputs and y'all perspectives on it, which was more lethal. Now, I am thinking about making this a series about which diss tracks are better than who, and I want to see, and if I do decide to do that, I have a couple ideas. Some are going to be expected, others are going to be pretty controversial. Others are going to be totally left field. You never know. But I would like you guys also comment on which tracks would you guys want me to do. I'll be interested in that. But thank y'all for tuning in. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, follow, check out the other videos. I'm planning on doing more of these video essays more often, talking about music, probably even talk about other stuff if I feel like it. I want to be as genuine as possible. Also, y'all make sure y'all subscribe to the gaming channel. The gaming channel is live and direct. I'm about to put more videos out there. But y'all bless up. Y'all take care. Peace.
Strong soul, walk the log wrong, will craft the pavement. Defiance to a stereotype in every statement. Battling shadows, depths of minds like a basement. Dug deep, notice myself is the hardest foe I'm facing. JK, but no joke, that's in appearances. I take breaks so I don't trip on hindrances. Vacate, borrow emotions, say grace, follow devotion. Can't erase what is hard to my emotions. Two choices.